Seeing. Just look pretty till the other audio starts. All right, here we go. Hey, everybody. It's Dr. Kevin McGovern again, and today is the 100th issue, program, compilation, show, podcast of the Prove It Live podcast. We have a very good show for you today. Some public service announcements. If you want to work with Mike or I, you can visit the Farm Baseball Performance Institute at farmbpi.com. If you want information from me, you can reach me at perfectmotionsportstherapy.com. And you can always email the show at info@proveitlive.com. So we got a show to you that revolves around a growing trend of spinal injuries for youth athletes, revolving the movement of rotation and how that parlays into training and hitting. So sit back, relax, grab a cocktail, and without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to my very handsome, very United States patriot dressed Mr. Mike Frary. Michael.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you for the kind, warm, and insanely accurate introduction. I am Mike Frary from the Farm Baseball Performance Institute, and I am once again adorned in the red, white, and blue, of course, the colors of our baseball program at the farm and the farm itself, actually. Everyone knows I'm a pretty patriotic fella. So I have to say, I am still patriotic despite last night's loss to Japan in the World Baseball Classic. And I am so because, I just wish for once, like, why doesn't the United States want to just have that dream team moment, like the 92 basketball Olympic team, easily hands down the best dream team of all time, right? Probably the best, most talented assembled team in any sport ever, right? Was that 92 basketball team. I just want to see the United States do that once. Had they had really everybody that's the best from the United States, they roll through that World Baseball Classic. And I saw Kevin doing the money sign. Sure it is, but those guys put on the line in 92. Those are all the biggest superstars in the world. Those are all Hall of Famers.
It's just it's different now. So if we look at money, right? I got YouTube TV. I got the internet. I didn't even know what channel it was on. I watched the end of Mexico and Japan, and I didn't even know that I did some camps with Benji Gill, who was the manager. I didn't even know that he was the manager. So the publicity of it was down. And then, look, ask the Mets if they want to participate in the World Baseball Classic moving forward, right?
Yeah, but my answer to them would be that easily can happen in spring training. People get hurt in spring training all the time.
But
it is happening. It is happening in spring training. Humble from the Mets just tore up his knee sliding in the second.
Yeah,
you're right. No, you guys are absolutely right. I don't. We could do that, but Judge opted out. All these guys opted out for not. Nestor Cortez opted out. He might have been banged up to play for his country. Or I don't even know if he would have played for the United States. I'm not sure what, but I just know that from the Yankee standpoint, a bunch of people had opted out not to play.
Yeah,
the United States had a good enough team to win man for man, even with they had. Look at the lineup.
They did. I just, and call this like, look, I'm a former Marine, as everyone knows, like maybe this is just the American pride talking, but they look at this, the fans look at this, they talk about it on social media. It's like, oh, it's the best country in the world of baseball. Like, please, like, you can't compare it. It's not without them playing, not without the very best going against the very best. And I just want to see that as a baseball fan. I'd love to see how, what it would look like, and I have an idea what it would look like, if they had, if they rolled out, Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer, Jake DeGrom, guys like that, they have those guys for a last game. I think it's a little bit of a different story. And, the lineup was great. Still could have been better. Like you said, Aaron Judge wasn't there. Bryce Harper wasn't there. So, it could even be better. But I digress. I'm not bitter at all.
Maybe it should be played in November.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care when it's played.
Right. We have got dome stadium, so the weather's not an issue. So why don't we play it in November instead of, in March? Maybe you get more people to play. I don't know.
Well, not to mention spring, and I mean, the weather's better in the fall than it is now. I mean, that's why they're playing in Southern California, Florida. They're playing in these warm climates. I'm all for that. Whatever it's going to take to actually get the very best players out on the field.
Miami already plays in the dome, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, where was the championship game? I know it was in a dome somewhere, but
Miami.
It was in Miami. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was certainly well attended, right? I mean, the place was bombed.
Yeah. I mean, if you watch the games, I mean, it's hard to not be a fan of it. It really is. And like, every player that plays in it says, like, you have to, they're begging everybody, experience this. Like, you have to experience this.
I mean, it's
playoff
like
atmosphere versus
it's professional Little League, right? It's the same feeling you get when like the Little League tournament when you play the rest of the world, right?
Yeah, it's a tournament. That's what it is.
Get excited for. I mean, it's definitely something kids love to watch. I mean, we had kids last night at the facility running out of practice to go check the score.
Yeah.
I wish they would have done a better job of marketing it. Because, like you said,
100%.
To me,
but you know why that is?
I had no idea when some of the games were. I was like, I didn't even know they were playing tonight.
Agreed.
But that's because MLB won't get behind it. You know what I mean? And the sponsors who are friendly with MLB, they're not gonna ruffle feathers. You know what I mean? So so it ends up on FS1. While the Red Sox and their F lineup is playing, I don't know, like Minnesota for the 17th time in spring training is on, one of the local channels. Yeah.
It would be cool to have, if you could ever put it together, to have the World Series champion as one team, right? The rest of the United States, and then everybody else who wants to, and play in November.
Yeah.
Play a double elimination college World Series type team and see who the best, and then truly have a world champion. I don't know.
Yeah. It would be nice to see, but the reason why,
we're concerned with pitch clock, right? That's the new thing, right? Pitch clock, not growing the game.
Didn't seem to be a problem in the World Baseball Classic,
No, not at all, and no one cares.
No one even noticed. No one
cares. No one. Yeah, it's
no one said. No one was watching the World Baseball Classic and said, "Man, I can't wait. I wish this was moving faster."
Right.
This pitch thing, I'm telling you, it's going to be. There's going to be, like I said this. Maybe I tweeted this out. There's going to be a George Brett pine tar moment with this pitch clock. It's gonna affect a game. That's or affect someone's bonus, or it's gonna do something, and someone's gonna go absolutely ape shit.
I don't think it's going to last. I really don't see it lasting.
You tweet a lot of stuff.
It's got to last a year. Major League Baseball.
Oh, yeah.
Egg on their face, right? For doing this. I mean, but then again, in order to have this, people had to vote this in, right? Someone voted this in, right? I mean, this doesn't, right? Don't you have to have players and owners approval or?
Well, yeah.
Rule changes.
The Players Association has to agree. And I'm sure there are other concessions too. Like, we'll let this, we won't let this, but I don't know. We'll see how it turns out this year. From the pitch clock, the no. I don't hate the no shift. I really don't. I don't hate it.
No, I don't hate that either. I think that's good.
Yeah. So anyway, so our 100th episode. So
100.
So that's a lot of episodes. I mean, that's like, so as Kevin has mentioned before, something we started really just during the pandemic as to like something to just vent about some of the garbage that we see on social media. We still continue to see probably as much, if not more, garbage on social media, by the way. It continues to flow. But I don't know if you know this, by the way. I mean, we haven't brought this up before, but a lot of the followers of some of the people that we talk about really shrunk after Elon stepped into Twitter and they started getting rid of all the bots. So I don't know if you noticed that, but that is noteworthy.
It's funny. So not only is there, I would say most of the people online, unless you're a celebrity, their followers are bought and paid for.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean this, right? I talked to a company today that their specialty is they'll get you up to 10,000 followers. Now, what they do is they literally have this marketing company that they're sending instant messages out for you to look and follow. So it's like a whole staff of people to get you. So it's not organic.
No.
You know what I mean? And then, so then obviously the algorithm takes over and you have more people commenting. But, I look at these people like, how does this guy have, I looked at, and I wish I saved it. Like today I had someone, for those hockey players out there, there's that hockey slide board that, piece of plastic that you slide back and forth. Guy's doing a pitching where he lifts his leg up, pushes off, and slides across the board. Like somehow that isn't thousands of followers, and I'm like, it's like that show Jackass, right? Like remember, like they sit around and figure out
Love that show.
how many crazy things, and there is actually, I don't know if you guys have looked, and I'll give them a prop. Has anyone seen Beer Belly Pitching?
Mm-mm.
Look it up. Beer Belly
Okay.
Pitching is a site that only makes fun of, but they do it in a serious manner, like it's actually a serious drill.
So it's like a
But they'll-
parody. Yeah.
It's a parody. It's a parody, and it's really, really funny looking at some of the nonsense. We should try to get them on as guests because it would be pretty funny because they're really good. So speaking of guests, Michael,
Yep.
what was we've had a fairly decent amount of guests on here.
Yeah.
Who is your favorite?
That's a good question.
Other than Ben Bills.
Other than Ben
Ben
Bills,
Bills was
who
a
came
guest.
in after he allegedly threw a perfect game.
Allegedly.
Everything's alleged.
That's right.
Which-
I don't know. We've had some really good ones. I'd have to say some of my favorites without picking one.
Yeah, we could do some off. What do we got? We could just talk about our favorites. Period.
Rodney White, who was a guest twice.
Chiropractor twice. Yes. He was a guest on our show, and then we did his show. That's what it was.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I knew we talked to him twice.
Yeah, he was great. He's
great. Yeah, he's awesome. And the other one I really liked a lot was Jason from Kinetic Arm. Jason Colleran. Jason Colleran.
Yes. Yep. He's doing very well. We communicate with each other. He's got that sleeve, which is, Kinetic Arm sleeve. Check it out. It's essentially a neoprene support for your shoulder in a way that doesn't restrict your throwing, which is good. So
simple but genius.
Mike and I both tried it. Works very well.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, there's people who hate it. I mean, it's so funny. Like it's so funny when he gets a hater because that guy,
he knows his stuff.
My goodness, dude, he puts. I just sit and listen, right? Because he definitely knows his stuff. He's out of Atlanta, Georgia, and he does. Then we had Kevin Barr, who's a former. Then we really got to see the insides and outsides of why there's so many injuries in Major League Baseball. He was the former strength and conditioning coach of the Florida Marlins. But of course, we had the controversial Jeff Fry, who I believe might have been on for our 50th episode. We've got to get him back on because
he's back on Twitter.
He's back on. But people who he made fun of had their little feelings hurt and reported him for some some crazy thing.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? Unbelievable. He from the beginning, right, was like of the same mind of where we were coming from. So it seemed like it's pretty much a match. He's since sort of taken on and, something more. He's, it's grown. And like, he's sort of the representative of not only like fighting all the BS that we talk about, but also like he sort of represents the old school versus and I don't even think it is old school versus new school. I think it's like, it's good versus bad. It's the good stuff that's being taught and the bad, of course, like in real life, the bad just outweighs the good so much that you need people out there speaking up, but he's a fun guest too. He was
he was definitely on, crushing Teacher Man and all these other things. But now he's has expanded. He's really into the. He anytime he finds someone showing up the pitcher, someone hit a home run for Virginia the other day, stood up, threw his bat, stuff that when you and I played would get the next pitch. Either you throw at the kid or you throw at the dugout or hit the coach. One of the things, right? That's just people let go now, right? This stuff that's just like, dude, act like you've been there before. Like it's March. Whatever home run you hit for Virginia in March means nothing. I believe the College World Series is in June. So like, what are you doing? But he calls them out. He calls it like he sees it. It's just, so Yeah, it's definitely an old school.
It is. And I think that there's a part of that, so I see both because, obviously I'm from that older generation and I agree with everything you just said, but I also have, coached for years, the younger generation, whatever younger generation. This year, we've got the 2022, 23 version of high school players, and that's how they are now. They all love it. It's not only, like, it's not like the pitcher's getting mad anymore at that. That's the thing. It's like the pitchers
that I don't get at all.
People give too much credit to their opponents these days. It's like, oh, is he the kid on that team? That was a bomb. Like if someone in my team, or if I have like our team let up like a tank, no one's talking about that the rest of the day after that game. No one mentions it. It's like Voldemort, right? You can't even say it. Now it's completely different. It's like, oh, look at this kid, and they, wow, that was a sick bat flip he had. It's changed.
Funny. It's funny you say that because I just got done playing college ball, and we played against this kid named Luis Vargas. And, he was Golden Spikes nominee for the NAI. He was like the first Golden Spikes NAI nominee in the last like 20 years or something. And he ended up hitting like 45 home runs this season. And they came to our place, and he's taking BP. And of course, I'm getting ready to pitch, so I'm walking back and forth the dugout, just gathering my stuff, and they're taking BP on the field. And my whole team is watching like his BP, like, oh my gosh. And I just remember our coach, who's an older guy, got into us. He's like, what? He's basically like, hop off, like,
yeah. What do you want to date him?
Yeah, exactly. It's like you can ask for his number after the game, but like we're about to against this guy. You're hyping him up. You're giving him all the confidence in the world right now.
That's right.
No, it's just funny. It's like it's a different. I mean, I'm kind of like you guys. I'm like, I'm not giving him props at all. Like until he beats me, I'm not giving him any credit. And even after he beats me, I'm still gonna say he got lucky.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like we could have been facing like Jake DeGrom. We'd be like, oh, this guy's a horse up his ass today.
Yeah, exactly. It's like
we're just missing him.
when you strike out and you go up to the guy and someone on your teammate and your teammate goes, "How was he?" It's like you always say, "He's dog crap."
Yes.
Yeah. He really strikes you out. Nice.
Yeah. But I've been in that situation too.
Isn't every kid today like literally a 5-second Instagram clip, right? Because no kids are watching full games, right? Everyone's like, oh, kids are watching. They're just watching the 5-second highlights of each kid. So everything is a 5-second highlight. Oh, that kid, Golden Spikes guy hit a home run. Bill struck out the last guy for the complete game or the perfect game. Everything, everything's in a 5-second clip. That's how everyone's life is.
It's funny you say that because you're right. They don't watch any baseball, but if you talk to them, you would think they watch every single inning of every game that's available because they know all the stars, they know all their stats, but it's because
the cliff note.
It is. It's web gems. All they see is continual web gems.
Yeah, well, it's like I was talking to my buddy last night who knows a little bit about baseball, not much, loves watching it, doesn't know much about it, and he's like, "Man, it was a great game." And I was like, "Well, I mean, the U.S. messed up a lot." And he's like, "Well, how do you figure?" And I was like, "Well, Trey Turner gets on. With one out, you got the fastest man in all of baseball up, and you have, I don't even remember who it was, JT Realmuto and Cedric Mullins swing at the first pitch, both fly out or something." I'm like, you didn't even give him a chance to steal. It's like, it's small stuff in the game. It's like, that's the stuff that kids aren't learning. All they see is the Shohei Ohtani versus Mike Trout strikeout, but they're not seeing the, Mookie Betts grounds out into a double play on the very first pitch the at bat before. It's like, changes the whole dynamic of the game.
On an outside pitch, you try to pull, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, one of the things that they had done well, not to get back into it, but one of the things they had done well is they had gotten into sort of that mode where they weren't all trying to jack home runs because all of them can obviously launch it and leave the yard. But when they started going with the pitches and playing not small ball, but just playing more smarter baseball, hitting with a better, more intelligent approach, that's when they really started putting up the runs, and they seem to go away from that from the last game. But
who else did the U.S. lose to? They had one loss. Did we know who else?
Mexico.
They did lose to Mexico. Okay.
Yep. Good game. But yeah, no, it's hard to pick one person. I think we've had some really good guests. We really have. Even Ben was a really good guest. Talking about they. So, and as complete amateurs, I feel like
And
we've
we
been
had
pretty good interviewers.
Yeah, we also had we had a good friend of the show. We had Ed Campbell, Dr. Ed Campbell, chiropractor,
That's right.
grandfather, baseball instructor and coach out in California, who
Mhm.
listens to the show. So yeah, I think for
What
something
a-
that literally started off as kind of like, geez, what are we gonna do? We're sitting here picking our nose, right? You
yeah.
know, we have definitely, besides guests, I think that we have given, between me, you, Ben, and others that sat in his seat, at least people have given them knowledge, or at least given some very good information that's usable, right? That's
Yeah.
usable right away, that prevents injury, that increases performance. And at the end of the day, that's what the show is about, of getting rid of all the noise of social media and water bottle throwing and you know tubes like this for the catcher, that all the why would you do that we've had, that we kind of give information, because a lot of parents don't know. I always kind of, um in my head, I think that the audience, I'm sure we have a lot of dads that listen, but I think that when I talk, I'm speaking to the single mom. This kid doesn't necessarily have a dad who's attentive, right? So the single mom really has no idea, sometimes what's good and what's bad for their kids. So the more information that we could, I'm not saying all single moms, so don't like send me hate mail, but like, let's, that we give information that anybody could use and use right away to help their kid be a better player and safer and not hurt. Because at the end of the day, if your kid's off the field hurt and we have enough of them, it's not any fun.
Yeah. The way that I look at it, my approach is, the dads out there too, moms. I mean, we have kids where, the mom, that, have both mom and dad, and mom's the one that's out working with the kid more often than the dad. And we have vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, you drive by any little league field in the spring and summer, and you're going to see some version of a drill, even if it's a simple throwing drill, even if it's a throwing on one knee, throwing a ball with a tape around it, whatever it might be, you'll always see some version of drill. And all the people that I've met, with very, very few exceptions, they want to be able to teach the game the right way. They just don't have the tools. They don't have the knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
They have only the knowledge that they were given. And, what are you going to do? You're going to only teach what you know. So,
Sure.
it's really trying to correct that path, and because look, I learned a decent amount from my little league coach. I had a good little league coach, and he taught a lot of good stuff. And it's hard to find that these days. It's not a knock on little league coaches. Like I said, they want to do the right thing, but it's very rare. And you can, and if you have a kid that's lucky, you got some guy in town who maybe played at a pretty high level and also knows how to teach it and also wants to give his time, then yeah, you lucked out. But all the other teams in that league are not going to be as lucky. And trying to level that and balance it out, I think, is what's blows my hair back. Oh, I got to mention too. One of our, I know we get more listens like on the like Apple rather than YouTube, but
Yep.
one of our most watched YouTube was our good friend Jeff Levin. That episode when we did
that was a really, the mental skills. That was a really good one. That was a really good one. Yes, I forgot about Jeff. That was good.
I don't want to get mad at me.
No, that was a good one.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyway, speaking of,
so Mike, what is going on with the pandemic, quademic of spinal? I can't even say these words together. Spinal fractures in adolescence. What is happening? What's going on? You're seeing it. I'm seeing it. I'm like shocked by it because it blows my mind. Like I'm literally like, how is this? I mean, I know how it's happening. Why is it happening? What are we doing? Stop doing it. So maybe you can kind of.
So from what I see, and this is interesting, this is what I think is really cool about this show is, we don't really talk about this stuff before we go on air. We might talk about what we're going to talk about. We don't get into it. So this is all like,
this is impromptu. There's no. There's no.
So I'll start by saying that
there's no WWE script.
No. I had a player who dealt with this going back to like one of my very first years starting this program. But it was one, and I think it was one in like 3 years, maybe 4. And slowly but surely it's becoming more and more. We see more kids get, and again, it's not just kids that are involved in my program. And again, I should say this, we talk about this, kids in our program, we're teaching the right thing, but a lot of kids, it takes years to learn this.
Mhm.
And so, along the way, before they have proper mechanics down, the kids are susceptible still to arm injuries, leg injuries, back injury, whatever. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that sort of a caveat. But it's getting more and more. And, of course, we work in a facility where there's kids in there training and rehabbing, and we see a lot of kids with this issue. And the issue is stress fractures in typically the lower spine, lumbar, thoracic. I think there's probably, if I were to guess, just from the kids that I know about in the last year, I think there's been like 6 to 8 at a minimum. And again, that's just the ones that I know. That's not the ones that that's not, so it's an issue, and it's an increasing issue to the point where we're now acutely aware of it in our training, and I have my ideas of why it's happening, but I'd love to hear what you have to say from a PT standpoint.
Yeah, we have to first, look at I wish I had a spine here, but the anatomy of a spine, where we have this central bone, right, which is like an Oreo, stacked on top of one another. And then off of that, we've got this, like, these piece of bone that come off. They're called your lamina. You may have heard, for those Boston sports fans, a laminectomy. Years ago, when you had a disc injury, they would take that piece of bone out. Larry Bird actually had that surgery and never really came back after playing. So you got this lamina, and that comes out and makes this facet joint. So the bones stack on top of one another, and the facets hook in like a train. So as one turns, it hooks into another, and they all turn. But these are small pieces of bone. Right. And then in that hole too comes out, through the lamina comes nerve, artery, vein, everything that goes, from the spinal cord out and down and innervates our arms and our legs. So what I have seen is a lot of rotational, you're going to get a compression fracture or a fracture. Obviously from a trauma, you get hit by a car, you fall off your bike, but that's not what we're seeing. We're seeing a result of overtraining, where we're doing what I think is injurious type of movements by how you're doing it, not necessarily the movement itself. Okay. Because obviously our spine rotates, right? In every sport, we're rotating. And I'm seeing a lot of what we've been doing. I see, even social media, I see these heavy balls, weights, people winding up and winging them against the wall, and I get like this because they're doing it out of sequence, right? So, they're holding something out here, in their arm, which now that's going to turn our arms on. So now our arm muscles are on, holding this ball, and our brain's going to go, oh, we got to move. If we're not careful how we move, we're going to throw our arms first, which is exactly opposite of what should happen. And when we talk about torque on the spine, I go back to something that Ben will understand, and that's the Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote, right? So I just remember that cartoon, right? We had the big boulder, and then we took a stick, and we had a fulcrum underneath, and we tapped the stick, and the big boulder was supposed to roll off the cliff, but as you know, in the cartoon, it always would roll backwards and run over Wile E. Coyote. So what that means is that fulcrum, meaning that if I'm holding anything out in my hand, my arm becomes the long stick, and the stress on my spine or my joint proximal becomes exponentially more, right? So that's where we really have to move the theory of proximal to distal, moving from our spine out and not the other way around. And we've been talking about that pitching and hitting. Now we put 30 pounds in our hands and do that, and we do that out of sequence, we're asking for trouble. And that's what I see.
That makes total sense. I mean, I agree with that, first of all. So, and that's the thing, like these kids, I'm going to take it back a step, right? So it starts with, and I think the reason why I've seen it more is more kids who are strength training to supplement and enhance their baseball training or sports training, whatever sport, right? Baseball is a rotational sport. I always tell everyone we do two things in baseball: we sprint and we rotate. That's it. It's a full straight sprint or rotation. There's not a lot of lateral movement unless you're a shortstop, middle infielder, right? And it's going from a dead stop to pure sprint. Unless you had a career like mine where, you basically got to trot most of the time, but that's not for everybody, right? Usually you got to hit it. You got to run really fast. So,
well, when you struck out, you should have ran back to the dugout quicker.
I was talking
They teach you to walk back to the dugout after striking out.
Do they?
It's a bad look to sprint or jog back to the dugout.
Okay.
That used to be a thing in college baseball where it's like, I think you had to sprint back to the dugout. Yeah.
Yeah. Until people realized it's like ridiculous.
It looks stupid. Yeah.
Yeah.
So more kids strength training. So it's first of all, they're training more frequently. I think people are picking up on that. But for me, from what I see, you hit it right on the nose, is it's happening to the players who rotate out of sequence. It's the ones who don't yet have the muscle memory of rotating with their hips first. And, obviously if I turn my hips, I always like, as an example, I say, hey, let's forget about baseball. Put your bat down. Let's pretend we're at the bus stop. And I say, mimic me. And I just I pivot my foot. I'm going to do it. I just pivot my foot and I turn my body. Right. And your shoulder naturally turns with it. That doesn't happen when you turn your shoulders. Your hip lags behind. And so you start to torque your spine, as you know, at that point. And that's what I see a lot of it's the kids that they really kind of jerk their shoulders to their swing. They're thinking rotation. They're working on the rotation. They're trying to get their hips moving, but the muscle memory is not there and they're torquing their shoulders. And so if they're doing that in their swing, then they're doing that also in their throw, another rotation, and then they're doing it on their med ball work. Like there's no question about it. Now, I have an idea of how to do med ball throws, and I think Kevin, you'd agree with me. A little bit different than what I see some of these kids is, like you said, the arms extended out here, and they're just like hucking the ball as hard as they can into a wall, or they're throwing it to somebody or whatever. And I don't see them focusing on the proper body part and how they're supposed to throw that ball, letting them, just like when we teach a swing, it should be all lower half and the hands just become the steering wheel. But, get too much upper body involvement, chest and shoulder.
Yeah. And this goes back to, movements are building blocks, right? One Lego block at a time. And you really have to, when we talk about the spine and spine health, I would argue that, the spine is probably not completely fully developed, and people still have growth plates at that puberty, adolescent age. Movement's got to be really, really good before we start putting weights in our hands, even lift.
Absolutely.
I've seen tons of back injuries from poor squatting and poor deadlifting. And this goes back to, maybe it goes back to social media. I'm not sure where it comes from, but we have to be able to do the movement perfectly, kinesiologically correct before we add resistance, speed, and weight. Those basic principles, and those are being violated. Those are violated when someone throws a heavy ball. Like, yeah, can you throw a heavy baseball with proper mechanics? Sure, if you throw it downhill. Have you seen anyone online throwing the heavy baseball that's actually coming downhill? No. So, things can be done correctly, but 99%, all injury to a greater or lesser extent has to do with poor movement sequencing. And that's it. And now the end result is we have kids with back injuries, and injuries to the spine are permanent, and what does that look like 5 years down the road? We don't know. What does a healed rotational spinal compression fracture look like when they're 22? I don't know. Is there going to be scar tissue there? Is there going to be, are these kids? And here's the other thing too, Mike. When you were built once, right? We've got, however you got here, what do you think you got here? You were built once correctly. And every time you have an injury, now you're broken, right? You're not permanently broken, but you will do things, therapy, rehab, whatever, that gets you well. And then people stop doing it. You get injured again and injured again and injured again. And you'll
Right.
see, I mean, how many kids you see start with one injury, and then before you know it, it's a whole tree of injuries
Yeah.
because they got better or they were doing something that was getting them better. And maybe it wasn't shiny, maybe it wasn't glossy enough. And they went somewhere else or stopped doing it, picked up something else, and now they're hurt again. And now that injury is exponentially worse than the first time they had the injury.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I see that a lot.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's a good point because it's always fixing. It's like you're always playing catch up. Like you're never out in front of things. And that's really important. And now I think, look, a lot of people, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to be out in front of it, but they're just, they do that. They get distracted by the shiny object. They hear, oh, this guy, he's got some famous name, whatever it might be. They see something cool on Instagram. It's the path of least resistance, right? That's the other. You got a lot of kids who they want to say they're working out every day, but they're taking the easiest possible workout to do it, right? I mean, you got a lot of scenarios, but
just going to the gym does not mean working out, by the way.
Right. Exactly. Right. I mean, so yeah, because you run to your mailbox in your driveway is more than 50 feet long. That's not cardio.
I ran to the bathroom this morning. I did my cardio.
Exactly. Right. And so, but we do have, I mean, I will say this, the kids that I know who have dealt with this are all hardworking. One of them, Kevin, is a kid who played for me since he was young, and he's one of the first kids that I had and delivered to college. His name was Kevin. He's from Newton, played at Southern New Hampshire. They work hard. It's just that and that's, I think, the other part of this. So
you also have to work
right
smart.
First, you got to learn to use this.
That's correct.
Then I'll teach you to use this. It's a little Braveheart reference for you.
Absolutely.
So two things. Number one, almost without exception, it's the ages 14 and 15 that I'm saying this. And I do have one exception to that, right? But 14, 15 years old.
And that's that, post-puberty, we're starting to get some testosterone, but we might have grown 4 inches, which may, and that's what I see. That's that demographic that is, you got to be really, really careful because you literally could ruin someone for a long time because the body's changing every single day in that, that, I mean, you see it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and we see so for us, it's the 13 to 14. That's when we're really worried about the growth plate in the elbow because we've experienced it, right? So the kids are growing. That growth plate's obviously still open. We're going to be careful in that. Once we have the 15-year-olds, for the most part, not without exception, but for the most part, we can worry less about that elbow growth plate. But now it's the back thing that they're starting to look at. So it's almost like these age groups have their own little potential injuries. But the stress fracture thing is new in the sense that it's I don't want to call it an epidemic yet, but it's trending that way. And so I think a part of that too is you do have kids getting bigger and stronger. Kids are stronger. So not only are they torquing their spine by rotating their shoulders and not their hips, but they're doing it with more force than kids were maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I don't know that for sure, but I think that's definitely a possibility. But it's to me, it's a lot of overuse. It's kids that are, like I said, it's the hard workers. So they're working 3, 4, 5 days a week. And I think you have a kid mindset of, well, hey, I got to rotate in this sport. Mm-hmm. So the more rotation I do, the better I'm going to be. And they just, and overdo it. They got a young growing body and it just can't handle the workload.
Practice makes permanent, not perfect.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's the key for parents listening. You've got, this is where, I hate to say unsupervised because God,
a lot of it is
us Gen Xers. Our games were unsupervised. We didn't manage to have spinal rotational fractures. We went to the Y, we did this, we did that. So We can delve into them. I'm sure there's a lot of keeping up with the Joneses. There's more.
Yep.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what it is, but the movement has to be precise. Get your kid to a trainer who's measuring. Okay. What I mean by that is they're not handing out. So let me explain that. Here's your program. If you go to a trainer that every program is the same for each individual, you may want to think to go somewhere else, because there's no two bodies built alike. There's no two bodies that move alike. There's no two bodies that have the same range of motion. So if you're not being evaluated at your training program and you could be in a group setting, but if your training program is not individualized to your needs and your dysfunctions, you are in the wrong place, and you are going to get hurt, and you're not going to improve, right? If they just hand you, here, everyone wears a size 10, it's not going to work. It's
No.
not going to work. We're going to do this, and this. And this is what I see. And if, there's a lot of trainers in this area who, I've heard horror stories. Yeah, it wasn't supervised. They got the music blaring. No one was looking at my form. They're on there doing, here in PTs, well, someone's doing their notes and no one's looking at me. And this is stuff that drives me up a wall when I hear that, because I can trace back from a physical therapy standpoint why you didn't get better, and from a strength and conditioning point why you're hurt.
Yeah. And that's I think as a sport, or as even just as teachers, so it's not just baseball, strength trainers, whatever. I think treating the ages of adolescents, 13, 14, 15, that they're still in the fundamental phase. It's still like hammer home mechanics, body mechanics, sequencing, how to move. It's so important because they're going to carry that the rest of their lives. How you teach that kid to squat now is how he's probably going to squat when he's 23. It should be, right? It's probably going to be. They're not going to relearn at 21 unless they're in something, that's, where squatting is specific to what they're doing. But, that's the way I look at it. That's what I take pride personally in teaching the kid the swing that they're going to have through college and hopefully, into professional baseball one day, but like Kevin said, practice makes permanent. So, and these are such influential years we're talking about with these kids. And if it's not right there when you have them, the body movement you taught them, if it's not proper and it's not correct, could be an injury down the road, even when they're not with you. So
1,000%.
Right.
All
right. Before we go,
yes.
I'm just trying to figure out who Braveheart is.
What? How have you not seen Braveheart?
What?
Never
Get
seen
off
it.
this. Get off. Are you? Oh my God, dude.
Sir William Wallace, too. All right. Yeah, that's prescribed.
Do we have any why
we
would
don't
you do that?
We don't, because I knew we were going to talk about this for a little while, but I just it would go now, the actual Voldemort of our podcast, and the man that I used to talk ad nauseum about, we both did, our old friend Teacher Man, HLP, what's that again? High level something, whatever. Dude, he's still posting the most obnoxious, grandiose, self-promoting bullshit that I mean, he takes credit for anyone who has a little success. All of a sudden, see, he's doing the thing that I said. No, he's not.
No, he's not. That judge on Kinetrax doing nothing of what he says, moving from his belly button, where he should be.
One-legged hitting, another one-legged change, another career. Then he's got a video of Otani, by the way, who actually has a shift of weight from back to front, which he says, of course, is going to make you late. Like, just if anyone out there who's watching the podcast, listen to the podcast, I know you've heard us talk about him. If you want to see what we're talking about in terms of the garbage and why it's so angering sometimes, go to his site, go to his Twitter page, go to his Instagram. It's Richard Schenk. Just put in Teacher Man and enjoy. You're welcome. Have fun with that. So that's all I have to say about that.
So I'll give you my pitching thing that I've been working on this week. Okay. Pronation kills. Do not have the ball in the glove like this. Have it in the glove like this. Right, Ben Bills? This is going to cause injurious movement. It's going to cause our M, our T, our W. There's no reason for alphabet soup to be in the pitching windup. And if someone is teaching you to drag your foot when you throw, pick it up and run as far away from that pitching instructor as you can. You don't drag anything towards home plate ever. And that's all I'm going to say about that.
Eva.
Ever.
Right.
So again, you can reach the farm at thefarmbpi.com, perfectmotionsportstherapy.com, info@proveitlive.com. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next